Today on Vantage Revival, we watch the infamous sequel to the cult classic movie 1998's Urban Legend. This 2000s movie, directed by John Ottman, focuses on a group of filmmakers taking part in bringing to life a film about urban legends. But when the cast and crew start disappearing, they soon discover that a real-life killer is scarier than the one on film. Urban Legends Final Cut, now playing on Vantage Revival. It's been a year since our last podcast.
Time.
Yeah. So I felt it was fitting to kind of bring a little of the first season to the second season, hence why I brought forward Urban Legend Final Cut, in honor of one of the first horror movies that you actually liked.
Yes. The first note I have down here is, this is very exciting. I did not expect this to be the first one. I'm pretty sure you actually told me that there was a second Urban Legend, but I completely forgot about that. So I was like, what? There's another Urban Legend that we get to watch?
And that we did.
Yeah.
It's an indirect sequel to the first movie. It doesn't really have any connecting storylines outside of a few characters that kind of make appearances from the first movie.
Yes.
But overall, it's its own thing. And it's about a group of film school students who are being killed off. And why are they being killed off?
Okay, first and foremost, Jennifer Morrison, love her. Love her. I didn't know that she was...
Is that Amy?
That's Amy. Yeah, she played in a few episodes of How I Met Your Mother, which, as you know, is my favorite show. She also played in Once Upon a Time. She's really awesome in that. I love her. I think she's hot. And to see her so young in here, and I feel that she kind of made the movie. I loved her character. I loved her acting. And then when I saw Reese, I was like, no freaking way.
Yeah, Loretta Devine. She reprised her role as Reese, the cop, but now she's been downgraded to just college security, so she's not as high up as she used to be. Yes,
definitely. But it was exciting seeing her, just seeing the tie-in from Urban Legends 1 and seeing her here. But let's start at the beginning. So the first thing I thought was, no plane is ever like this. Where is this music coming from? Nobody's ever just dancing around.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. There are college, Cancun flights that are notorious for being as rowdy as... Probably even worse than that was. There's videos. You can see it.
Oh my gosh. I don't like flying, so... I don't know. Maybe I've just been only on old people flights or something, but... Man, I was like, none of this happens in real life.
I mean, it's not supposed to happen, but there can be some rowdy flights out there.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I was more thinking about the sex on a plane and how uncomfortable that would be. There's no room, and I get that it was a joke, really.
Yeah.
But the idea of having sex on a plane doesn't seem worth it. So that opening scene, though, on the plane is not real. They are filming a movie.
Yes.
Was that an effective opening for you? Because I felt it wasn't as good as the first movie's opening, where it had a real death that connected the entire movie together, where this one had a false start and did not connect really with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I think if it was a real scene and it wasn't a directed film that they brought in, I think it would have been worse. I think the fact that it was a movie within a movie made it better. Do I think that it's as good as the first one, where yes, there's this girl who dies and is setting the effect on the rest of the movie, whereas it's just a bunch of killings, turns out to be fake. They keep kind of faking these deaths because they're filmmakers. It's just oh no, just kidding. Oh no, just kidding. So I think, yeah, I definitely do like the way that the original Urban Legend started in comparison to this one.
So I was kind of torn with this movie a little bit, because growing up I always knew that it wasn't as good as the first movie, but I'm torn if I like the direction it went, because it is going for something a little bit different. It's not so much focused on the idea of killing with urban legends and more of creating this movie just based off of it. So I don't know, is that a positive or a negative that didn't really follow the same killer MO as the first movie?
And I was thinking that too. I was honestly confused for the first little bit of the movie, because I'm like, none of these are urban legends. And so it didn't make sense to me, even when we knew that she was trying that Amy was trying to make a movie based off of urban legend killings. I was like, but where is the urban legend killings happening in this movie?
Well, I will say everything that she did film technically was an urban legend.
Yes, but everything that happened, I was like, it doesn't make sense. So I guess, like, in the sense of it being the movie Urban Legend inside of a movie named Urban Legend, The Final Cut, I guess it makes sense. But as far as being an urban legend-based killer movie, didn't make sense.
So I have a question about wardrobe then, keeping in the realm of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer the outfit of the winter jacket as the killer or the fencing mask with the leather fisherman suit? Which one do you prefer?
I honestly preferred the winter jacket. And you know what? They did tie it in.
Okay.
When Dirk and Stan, was that their
Dirk
names?
and Stan, yeah.
They were walking up to Amy and trying to scare her wearing masks and wearing black, not red, wearing black puffy winter coats. So I thought that was kind of funny. But once again, it was one of those fake outs where it's like, something bad's gonna happen. Whoop, just kidding.
And that happened quite a bit in this movie.
A lot in this movie.
A lot of red herrings and a lot of misdirections.
Yeah.
I think especially when it comes to who could be the killer.
100%. I thought that it was weird because I think we all... My notes... This is what my notes say. It said creepy guy because we didn't know his name until like three-fourths into the movie. And then I changed it to say Toby is his character. And it says, Toby laughs when Travis explains that his head blows off. We think that he is the killer, but because we think that, he is not. So there's kind of a, because of Urban Legend 1 and how
they went about
the secret
of the killer, yeah.
And you know what? They did really well with it. I'm not saying that this movie didn't, but they did really well with hiding who the real killer was until the very end.
Yeah, and this one struggled.
Yes, and this one did. They tried too hard to throw you in every different direction. Oh, is it going to be Trevor? Which I have words about, but anyway.
We'll get to Trevor later.
Is it Toby? Is it Trevor? Is it the weird guy that I still don't know his name and he got shot at the end for no reason? Like,
I think his name was Graham.
Graham, that was his name? Yeah, like, it was just like, it wasn't a linear thing, whereas in Urban Legend 1, you're like, oh, it's this guy. Very clearly not that guy because he ends up dead. Okay, then it's this guy, whereas this one was just kind of like everywhere. Who could it be?
Yeah, and I feel like they didn't give enough focus on those side characters either, so it was hard to even kind of create, like, oh, I think it is this one. Because we didn't get much time with them. Most of the movie is with Amy, and like strictly Amy. And Trevor as we get into it. So it's hard to even kind of figure out who it might be when we don't have time with anyone else.
And that's the thing too, is in Urban Legend 1, and I keep referencing that
we have
heavily,
to.
But we have to.
Technically it's a direct sequel.
Exactly. So. We got to spend a lot of time with the killer in Urban Legend 1, and we got to see.
And we didn't know.
And we didn't know.
Yeah.
This one, the killer, we seen twice before.
At the beginning?
Before it was revealed that they were the killer.
Yeah.
So it was a struggle to even try and kind of like piece it together that could have been the killer. Whereas if you tried really hard in the first Urban Legend, you could probably piece together who the killer was.
There's enough hints that were given.
She leaves every time something happens, you know,
and
like...
it comes back right after the murders happen.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Whereas here, there was no indication of who the killer was whatsoever, and it kind of took away from it.
It's a slap in the face to the audience that we did not have any indications of who the killer might be. If you're trying to solve it, you're trying to watch it, trying to understand it, there's no way that you could figure out who the actual murderer is based off of what they show you in this movie.
And two, along with that, in the first movie, you grow to, maybe not like, because her character was still not the most likable, but you grew to know the character, and when the character was, you know, that one scene where she might be getting killed, you're kind of like, oh, I feel bad about it, like, I don't want her to die, I know her as a character, whereas in this one, who cares who the killer was, because we never saw them, ever. We didn't have a connection with them whatsoever.
Literally. So I guess, now that we've talked about the killer, we should probably just explain who the killer was.
Yes.
And why they did the killings
yes.
they did. So the killer was actually their teacher, Solomon. And he killed them because he wanted to be famous and found that one of his students made a really great movie. So I'm going to kill that student and take his movie, and then I'm going to kill everyone who worked on that movie, so then they don't know that I stole this movie, And then I'm going to blame Amy because her father, many, many years ago before he died, won a contest and ruined my future because I didn't win that contest.
Yes.
It was dumb.
Yes. I agree.
It was a dumb motive to murder a dozen people and put it on Amy. And I also feel that you had to have everything line up perfectly for this plan to work.
Exactly.
And it obviously would never line up perfectly in the real world. And I also question, did he not have to kill all the rest of the actors that are in the movie that he stole? Like, he only killed that group of friends, but I'm sure there was many more people that worked on that film. And also, Sandra was in it. And Sandra's a horrible actress. So how was she a part of this amazing movie?
Yeah.
There's lots of problems.
Things don't line up. There's Travis, who was the filmmaker that the killer / professor stole. And out of nowhere, Amy runs up to this tower and finds Nope, just kidding. It's not Travis. It's his twin brother, Trevor.
Identical twin brother.
Identical twin brother. They have the same amount of mustache hairs because they are so identical, because they are the same person. Anyway, I didn't like that twist at all. I didn't like the whole twin brother thing, him being all creepy and creeping around.
Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
I think they wanted to have really Trevor be like, he could be the murderer.
He's the red herring, yeah.
Maybe he's actually Travis and his murder was a lie and made up. I think they were really trying to bank that mystery of who Trevor really is will help carry the film with how much we see Trevor.
Yes.
My issue with that is I'm okay with it being the twin. It's goofy, it's cliche, sure. My issue is how trusting Amy was towards this complete stranger. In every scenario, like her friends or classmates would be dying, and then she'd be like, Trevor, you're supposed to protect me, and he's like, oh yeah, I was trying to. Okay, I believe you. And it's just like, no, that's not how this works, you know? Or the fact that 5 days into this murder spree, they're in bed together, and they don't have sex or anything, but like she just lays in bed with this complete stranger.
I think it would have made it better if Amy and Travis actually had a relationship, but he was seeing another woman who died and never got brought up again, by the way, but okay. I don't know what she had to do with anything. The girlfriend, I guess. If Amy and Travis had a relationship, maybe I'd get it, because she's like, well, you really look like Travis, I find comfort in you.
That's fair.
She was just creeping on Travis and had a crush on Travis, but it was never reciprocated from what we know or what we see. And then she's just weird with his brother. It's odd.
Every interaction they had together felt very soap opera, drama, and kind of took me out of the horror realm that this movie's supposed to be in. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it hit the mark again with the original. The original was quite funny and made fun of these urban legends and whatnot. This one I don't think was nearly as funny, and I think it was trying to be more serious, and by doing that it made it worse. It should have been funny. It should have kept the honor of the first movie there to keep the original fan base happy. But let's talk about the girlfriend, Travis's girlfriend, because she's probably murdered the most extreme way, I would say, out of
100%.
all of them. And I remember watching this as a kid, how disturbed I was by that entire scene. Mm-hmm. She was at a bar. I don't know how the killer knew this, but he spiked some drinks that were at a bar table that the waitress was going to bring over. So how did he know that was for them? Like, again, it's a movie, but it just wasn't realistic.
And I thought it was funny the way that he did spike the drink as well. Obviously, once again, it's a movie and it was a close-up scene, but it's just an open. It's not like they get him kind of putting in a pill very discreetly. No, he just opens up a packet and just dumps it in far away from the glass as he could.
In front of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, they both drank drug drinks, and we never see or hear what happened to the guy. Like, he never talks about how he was drugged, nothing. So I think, I don't know, again, these problems in this movie are definitely relevant.
Here's the thing, they also didn't talk about the death of that girl either. And that's
I can only think they don't know she's dead, you know?
And,
she's missing or something, but they
and
don't
that's
talk
the thing,
about
but
it.
they talk about Sandra. Like, Sandra is supposed to be in LA in a coma on the show The ER. And they talk about Sandra more than they talk about this missing girlfriend who hasn't been seen in days.
I can only assume that she's not friends with them, or she's not classmates with them, or something, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why she's not touched upon. I'm sure anyone that goes missing at that age group is going to be big news, and there's like no talk about this girl
Nothing.
going missing. So she gets drugged and kidnapped, and she's brought back to, I'm assuming, the killer's house, which I don't know like what this teacher's doing with his money, but like where does he live? Like it was literally a crack den.
Yes.
like literally a crack den. So she wakes up in a tub of ice, and this is an urban legend, and she finds out that her kidney has been removed. She gets up and she starts shutting doors, hoping to keep the killer away from her, and she's gonna escape outside through a window. She opens the window and there's a dog, and then there's a fence, and the fence has barbed wire. So the killer is chasing her and trying to break into this bathroom. She's trying to climb out this window, not very well, but I mean, give her some credit, her kidney was just ripped out.
That's true, yeah.
And also, this is a film school teacher. Is he a doctor? Like, how did he know? Like, I don't know. I don't think a regular person could cut out someone's kidney and keep them alive.
Yeah, and have them alive.
And like sewed up and like not bleeding. He did really good for a film school teacher.
Yeah, no kidding.
So ultimately, he does break in and he starts pulling her out. She's fighting back and forth and she's about to get out, it looks like. But then he grabs her open wound and like, rips it open. She breaks the window. He cuts off her head with the broken glass. Now, I will say, when I first saw this movie, that scene terrified me. I had a hard time watching it. Watching it now, though, it wasn't nearly as gruesome as it was when I was a kid, so...
Yeah, it didn't seem so bad, but...
In hindsight of everything we've seen nowadays, it's not that bad, but I think for what it was, that was a great kill, and probably the best kill of the entire movie.
Yeah, definitely.
The rest were pretty tame after that. Again, with not keeping things connected with the urban legend, like when they kill Sandra, she was just running away while he filmed it, and like, that's what? Like he cut her up, and that wasn't really urban legend vibes to me. It was very something different.
Yeah.
But I will say, with the Sandra death, she forgot her keys after filming with them, and so she had to go back to the studio to find her keys. Why were her keys in the fake dog guts in the bathroom?
That's what I was wondering. She was just perusing through the whole set, just being like, it's not on the table, not on the couch. But then she spent 3.5 minutes digging through gut props, and then she finds them? Why? Why were they there? Why did you spend so much time there?
Well, she knew they were there, obviously. She's like, they have to be in these guts. They have to
They're not on any counter. I must have dropped them in the pile of guts.
And she did. That's the thing, though. She found them in the guts. That was a funny moment.
That was the comic relief that the movie wanted, but
they killed her off pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like, she was someone that probably could have carried some comedy throughout the entire movie.
Oh,
they
100%.
just kept her alive.
Mm-hmm.
She was kind of, to me, like the Tara Reid kind of character from the first movie.
Yeah.
But they killed her off like in the first probably half an hour or so. So probably too soon. They probably should have kept Sandra alive a little bit. But what I found funny about Sandra's death, and this kind of goes for most of the movie with Amy and her interactions and her lack of understanding situations. So she thinks that Sandra's dead.
Yes.
And then finds out throughout the movie that Sandra is dead, and maybe other friends and classmates were also dead. Yet she still continues to live every day as if it's just a regular school day. Hey guys, let's go film stuff. And I'm like, people are dying. Your people you're working with are literally dying, and you're like, let's go and grab that camera. And I'm like, that's not real.
And I found that the same when Simon, which I understand wasn't her friend, but it was still a human being that she was conversing with.
Yeah, so Simon was the DOP that got assigned onto her film project. And she literally saw the tapes of him being murdered. And
she was just like... And then she ejected the tape and just walked away like nothing happened.
Well, to be fair, right after that, the killer did chase her and ended up, getting that tape back, so...
Yeah.
Some stuff happened, but she was obvious...
But in between meeting with the killer, and like, if I just watched someone I know get beaten up and killed, I'd probably do a little more than just eject the tape and walk towards the light switches on the wall.
A light little jaunt, yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of not having a realistic approach to these situations, what the hell was Reese's character in this movie? Like, Reese was one of the better characters in the first movie. Reese was tough as shit, and she wanted to save the kids and put herself in bad situations to try to save people. Really tough. In this movie, when we first see her, the introduction of her is really great, and she talks about her connection to the first movie and the dead college kids, and how she's still tough. But then when anything came to the table of like, Reese, look what I found, she'd be like, are you sure? Do you really think that happened? Like,
there's no evidence.
They're gonna think it was just vandalism. And I'm like, you literally survived a horrible mass murder, and now you're questioning the person who's like, oh my god, everyone's being mass murdered. You're like, nah, are you sure? Not really. I don't get why they did that to Reese. I think, like, if anything, she should have been even more like, I need to stop this now. And been someone who took control of this movie, but they put her to the side and kept her being delusional to the situation.
And I mean, they kind of address it a little bit, but she just always knows where Amy is for some reason.
I think with that, they were trying to make us think that Reese was the new killer.
Was the killer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. I knew that Reese wasn't going to be the killer, and I think that was a bad, if it was trying to be a red herring, it was a bad one. So watching it, I was just like, this is just a little weird. There's no way that she wouldn't just see this stuff on camera and then happen to within 4.5 minutes,
not seconds sometimes,
seconds, just be in the same spot with her gun up.
Like the sewer scene, like she's like, how did you find me? Well, she's like, I was watching the cameras. I'm like, she just got to the sewers. How did you teleport there too?
Yeah, like... exactly. And it was super, super unrealistic. I'm bouncing back to when we first see Reese in the movie. One thing that kind of gets me is she's explaining this college that she used to work at, and she's explaining it as if she's giving Amy a movie to make. And Amy goes, haha, well, it's just an urban legend. And Reese is like, urban legend my ass. What I don't understand is, but people actually died, and it would be, probably in the media. And I know that back in that day, media wasn't as easily accessible, but I'm assuming with a mass murder happening, newspapers, articles, news on TV would have covered something for them to realize that wasn't an urban legend. That really happened. And now she's making a movie based on it.
I agree, especially with how big those murders would have been, and they all happened within a couple of days of each other.
Yes.
It would have been nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, this may be a little bit of a touchy subject, but if you look at Idaho right now, with the 4 college kids who sadly have been murdered, there has been a lack of transparency, which has been criticized nonstop. And there's also been lies, I would say lies, brought forward by the police, or the campus police, when they were like, oh, it's safe to come to campus still. So it's not that hard to believe that maybe, like Reese kind of said in this movie, people silenced the story. And she did talk about that, how everything that happened got silenced, and she lost her job because she refused to stay silent on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where they get away with this, by not knowing what really happened, because the story was never really told. So I don't know if I misunderstood the scene, but the scene where they announce that Travis has committed suicide, they do it in a very public setting, outside in front of a bunch of classmates and students, and Amy gets distracted by a random guy.
Yes.
And he's just dressed like a normal person, just walking away, and she's very like, who is that? And I'm gonna go follow them. And I was like, why? Why did that person distract her? Like, there was nothing.
They were going for a jog.
They weren't even, I don't think they were walking that fast. I just could not understand what that scene, I mean, I get it. They were trying to be like, ooh, a mysterious person. Maybe that's the killer or something. And I'm pretty sure it was Trevor, but he just didn't stand out. It was just a regular person walking away. Why was she so...
And you know what? That's so funny that you mentioned that, because I remember that scene, but I didn't even think to note it or think about it any more than what it was, which was just some weird guy running and her being distracted by it, and them trying to distract from the one of 2 scenes that we see the actual killer in.
That's true. I just think if I heard that someone I knew committed suicide, I would not be distracted by a random person walking away.
Especially, like we mentioned, Amy, who definitely had a crush on this guy. So someone that she liked, someone that she admired because she admired his work. Someone that she looked up to for help in her work, and she's distracted by some dude running. And at this point, might I add, she didn't know for sure that Sandra was dead. So
at this point, she doesn't know anyone's dead.
So at this point, it's just Travis has committed suicide, and she's like, oh, this can't be right. He didn't kill himself. That must be the killer running over there. I don't understand.
And at that point, Sandra was still alive. Because the DOP, Simon, was not a part of it yet, and he was a part of filming.
Right.
So at this point, literally no one that she knows is dead except Travis.
It was the girlfriend that I'm thinking of who died before Travis.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, so as you guys have heard, Travis has killed himself. And I'm like, what? Why? When are they going to mention this other random chick who died?
They don't care about
they
her.
Don't care, apparently.
I don't think she had a name.
Yeah, I didn't get a name from her, but I agree. That was a weird scene, knowing that we know that one person has died. But that's very assumptive of Amy to just assume that there's something wrong with the dude because he's wearing a freaking toque and going on a jog.
Yeah, so dumb. The other red herring character that is not a big part of this movie, but they really push him as the killer, is the equipment PA guy.
Yes.
He is this scrawny film lover, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's mean to him because I guess he's ugly. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. Because I felt like everyone in this movie looked like a porn star. Like, I could totally see everyone doing porn.
Yes.
And maybe they should have, because they would have been great for it. But this guy was not beautiful by any means. And I think that was why they didn't like him. Like, it wasn't very clear why everyone was kind of mean to him for no reason.
And you know what else wasn't very true to the storyline? They mentioned, one of the guys mentioned that he was the assistant because he didn't get into film school. Yet when Simon, this guy who comes with this like really expensive equipment comes, he's like asking him questions about this like expensive equipment. He knows the name kind of it. He obviously is very knowledgeable in this type of stuff, and he didn't get into film school. So it's also kind of weird that they make him this like film nerd who knows a lot about film and knows a lot about equipment and I'm not saying that makes everything, but obviously he has some knowledge in the industry and he didn't get accepted, yet he's honestly the one who sounds like he knew the most about how to direct a movie.
I agree. Like, he did know his stuff and he kept showing off his knowledge and they just kind of shut him down every single time. But I can kind of relate. I mean, I went to school for broadcasting.
Yes.
And I did not get in twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a process to get in. It's even more so now, but back then you had to do reports and kind of show off your personality and that you were skilled and knowledge in the program even before being a part of it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter. It didn't matter how much passion I had, how much knowledge I had. It didn't matter based off of the marks that I had in high school.
Yeah.
So I had to do a night class with the potential of, if I proved myself, that there may be an opportunity to get me in the program the following semester. And I did the night class, and my instructor literally said to me, "Why are you not in this program? Like, why have you not applied before?" And I was like, "I have twice. Like, let me in. I know this is what I can do. I know that I want to do this." And it took someone else actually seeing it and not just reading my marks off a paper to see the passion was there. So I think schools in general, there's a lot of gatekeeping and there's a lot of politics that go into it of who gets into classes and, you know, is it based off of, there's a lot of schools right now that you don't get in unless you're a certain skin color.
Yeah.
You know, they have a certain cap of how many white people can go to classes now or be put into universities. So these things should not be happening. There should be a way to assess somebody and see if they're the right person for the field. And I will say that with my program now, they require you to have a video of yourself and kind of selling yourself a little bit, which I think it is good. And it's good and bad because it's good you get to know someone, but I feel like if that had been me, it might have been bad as well because my confidence wasn't as great until I knew I could prove it in person.
Yeah.
So there's definitely pros and cons, but I think that schools in general need to change their submissions and their acceptance and figure out a way to get the best people in to have careers they love. Like, they think that's the whole point, right? It shouldn't be about money.
And I agree. And I think that as a post-secondary or college dropout, I feel that in our time today, I feel that post-secondary I'm not saying that, don't take this the wrong way, I'm not saying that broadcasting is like a minor thing, but broadcasting is something that you can now search online, get the information, and if you have the confidence, you can film yourself and you can become a broadcaster, right? Whereas like, I feel that post-secondary is going to become doctors, things that require, if you're going to perform surgery on people, yeah, maybe go to school. But I think that post-secondary is slowly going to become a thing of the past, just based on the information, the knowledge we can get from our computers. And a lot of jobs nowadays don't require you to have post-secondary schooling for what you're wanting to do, because they're willing to train the right candidate based on who they are.
I mean, you say that, but I'd like to remind you that he did cut out her kidney with no doctorate. So, do you need school to be a doctor?
Apparently
I don't think so.
not, just be a killer, and then you're good.
Because of the internet and whatnot, there just was no access to learning these things. So I do agree certain fields will become less popular in schools because you can self-teach. Mm-hmm. I still think that schools, at least for me, forced me to be diligent and helped me keep on track.
Yeah.
I focus a lot easier being in a classroom than I do at home with all the distractions of life and lunch,
Yeah.
There's just so many things that just...
Netflix.
Yeah. So as much as I appreciate self-learning, and you can learn a lot on your own, there is something to be said about going into a classroom and having someone directly talk to you and be there to answer your questions so you're not completely lost, or to get that feedback, because you don't always get feedback when you do things yourself, or if you don't put it out there, you don't get that feedback. So there's pros and cons to both, but I get what you're saying. And
I agree 100%. I personally took my post-secondary as an online course, and I ended up dropping out. And I think what it is you don't get that in-person one-on-one time with your professor, and I could send an email to somebody and then 24 hours I hear back from them. It's hard to go to school. It's hard to pay for your bills and go to school. So I'm working full time doing post-secondary. You can't just go up to your professor and say like, hey, this is what's going on. You're sending an email and it doesn't have any personality to the email. It doesn't have anything. So yeah, going to college or university online, I didn't enjoy. And maybe if I did in-class studies, I might have finished. But honestly, at this point in where life is, it's unrealistic to do that and pay your mortgage and pay your bills and, feed yourself. It's impossible. You need a full-time job to go to school at this point, and it's sad.
Yeah, no, every day is getting more and more expensive and less time put towards other things. So, no, I get it. So, one of the topics in this movie that is not a big topic, but I feel it is for me and my interest and love for films, is they say digital sucks, latex rules. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about, I guess, movies in general? And you haven't seen a lot, so I don't expect a big deep dive into this, but do you think you prefer CG kind of effects over the realistic, proper, practical effects? I
think I'm with them when they say digital sucks, latex rules. I would rather see something that might be a little more low budget, like in the sense of it not being perfect in a movie, rather than seeing a CGI'd perfect crime scene or whatever. And that might come from my love for viewing real crime scenes, which sounds very weird, but I'm just super interested in it. But if I see some CGI'd blood on a wall, to me it doesn't hit the same as someone taking some fake blood and splattering it on the wall. There is a different look to it, and I do agree that the time and maybe money put into the real thing makes a huge difference.
I agree. So, this is, I feel, a big plot hole in this movie. Maybe plot hole is not the right term, but after Sandra is killed, they, almost everyone in the crew, literally the whole crew is there. They're watching dailies of the footage they shot with Sandra over and over, and they're in a theater watching this footage. And then the killer swaps the reel and puts in the footage of him killing Sandra.
Yes.
They question if it's real, and most of them think it's a joke. Amy thinks it's real. But my bigger thing is, literally the entire cast, outside of 2 people, are in that room. So if you wanted to even guess who the killer might be, well, I can guarantee it's not one in that room right now.
Yeah.
It felt like when you play, the game Guess Who, and you flick down people's faces, at that point, just close the whole board.
Yeah, it's done. Stop looking.
I think there was only two people that weren't there, and it was Solomon and Travis.
Yeah.
Those were the only two.
And one was dead.
Yeah, and one was dead.
Yeah.
Or so Trevor, I guess. It was Solomon and Trevor that weren't there, and Graham. I think
Graham was there.
Yeah, so it was so dumb, I felt, to have all of the crew be in that scene, because it just ruined, like, even anyone else being the killer at that moment.
And I also feel like in that scene, it gets switched over, it starts happening, and and then you get the over-recorded audio coming through because, nobody said their lines loud enough, and all you hear is, "Oh, dude, that looks so real." And it's like someone's getting murdered, and it's all suspenseful, and then there's just this one guy who's got this, like, surfer dude voice, just, "Oh, dude, that looks so real." I was like, yeah, that really took me out of the experience.
Yeah. And I love Eva Mendes, who is in this movie. She's Vanessa.
She is, yeah.
But they didn't give her anything. I felt like...
She was lesbian.
She was a lesbian. That's cool. That was pretty progressive for the time period.
100%. Yeah.
And she was tough as nails and beat up anyone. But I had a problem with the tower scene with her. So, towards the end of the movie, after Amy sleeps beside Trevor...
Yes.
She wakes up and sees that Trevor is gone. Mm-hmm. She looks out her window and she sees the tower lights are on. And the tower is where Travis supposedly killed himself. And that's where she first found Trevor as well. So she has to go there for some reason because Trevor must be there. Like, I don't know why she went to the tower. Like, she, like, ran.
I know.
As if she
had
to get there.
The light blinked on once and then she was like...
Pointless. So she gets there, and the big reveal is that it's Vanessa. And she's holding a piece of paper. And the piece of paper was supposedly written by Amy, saying that she was in love with her and wanted to meet her at the tower and hook up with her. Where Vanessa quickly shot that down and like, I have a girlfriend and blah, 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 blah. And then Amy's like, I didn't write that. So here's my question again, with how the killer gets away with just doing all these things. How did he give a letter to Vanessa and then know that Amy was going to look out the window and see a light and then leave her house instantly and then go to the tower and interact with Vanessa? Like, how did the killer know this?
Yeah, because Vanessa went there
based off the letter.
To meet Amy.
Come at 8 o'clock, meet me at the tower situation.
But it was like the Spider-Man call. Amy just knew. If the light blinks once at the tower, come find me.
The Spider-Man call?
The Batman call. I don't watch those movies either.
Oh, clearly.
Her spidey senses were tingling, okay? It was like she was getting a Batman symbol. Oh, light flickers on once, come find me, I need help. But here's the thing, too. If I got a note from my friend who said that they wanted to have sex with me or be my lover, and it said, meet me at the tower at midnight, I would just not go. If I'm not interested, if I was interested, I'd go. If I'm not interested and I'm like, hey, look, I have a girlfriend, it's not going to happen, I would just stay home.
I guess that's fair. But maybe she did want it, and she was just playing coy, like, oh, I have a girlfriend. And then maybe Amy will convince me to change my mind, you know?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's what she was doing. But no, I agree. There was no reason for Vanessa to go there, and even less of a reason for Amy to go there.
100%.
So then they're talking about, like, well, who could have wrote this letter? And a mannequin falls down on the table from the top of the tower. Mm-hmm. And they get scared and they see someone coming in from the bottom of the tower where they're at, and that is the killer, because they see the fencing mask. So how did the mannequin fall if the killer was on the first level with them?
Yeah, who's that guy? It's the creepy guy. He was in cahoots.
And it was not the poor PA. It definitely was not. And as we see at the end, he becomes an actor for them. And that's kind of, I guess, the happy story of this movie is the creepy, ugly guy they all hated became
like
an
a main
actor
character in
the
new movie.
Yeah, he became a part of Amy's movie at the end. Oh, so magical.
So going off of Vanessa's part, though, you know what I never understood? His whole... no, never mind. I guess his whole goal was to pin it on Amy, even though he spent so much time trying to kill Amy leading up to this tower scene and after. So that, I never understood why he spent so much time trying to kill her.
I don't think he was trying to kill Amy, now that I think about it, because that scene after Amy looks at the VHS tapes of Simon being killed, he plays with her. He wore that stupid moon mask.
Yeah.
And was like walking the same way she was. And I think that he just wanted to get that VHS tape back.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it doesn't make sense to kill Amy if that was the plan, to frame her for literally everything. But it also might have been, maybe, how can I make Amy crazy?
Yeah.
How can I keep her delusional and scared of everything, so then when I convince everyone that I have framed her, she's so out of it and crazy that, yeah, she must have been the killer. Look how crazy she is. So that might have been more of what he was trying to do, because he wasn't very successful in any attempts of killing her, obviously. So.
Exactly, and that's what brought me to this whole Vanessa scene, was because they were standing right next to each other. He had any choice, and that's when I realized, oh no, he was trying to pin it on Amy. But yeah, if he was trying to kill Amy, he could have just as easily grabbed Amy and killed her at that point. And I think if that's what he was trying to do, that would have made more sense in that scenario, because I get it, she's a main character, so he can't do that. But in real life, grab Amy if you're trying to kill her. She obviously knows that you're chasing her, and save the Vanessa chick. She doesn't know what's happening, so she's not going to be trying to run away from you, but whatever, that's just...
They made a choice.
Yeah.
So, let's go back to Simon's death, because there's more to his death that we've kind of glazed over.
Are we talking about the way that he got knocked down with that...
with the karate chop?
Yeah, with the karate chop?
He got karate chopped and nearly passed out over it. Yeah, no, that was such a goofy way to knock someone. But I mean, karate chops can be very deadly. If you hit a certain part of the neck, like, yeah, you can, I think, kill someone. So, I get it. But in this movie, there should have been no karate chops.
I was gonna say, it looked like a mannequin hand just, like, dropped on his neck, and then he was just knocked out.
It was quite funny. But I wanted to talk about the scene that was going on while he was being murdered.
Yes.
So Amy was getting in some more audio for her movie, and in the scene she needed everyone to scream at midnight. And this is the urban legend, that a bunch of people at a campus screamed at midnight, and because everyone was screaming, somebody was murdered and no one heard it. And that's how Simon dies.
Yeah.
I'm fine with all of that. My issue is... well, first, these people screamed for like a solid minute, top of their lungs. I don't know who could do that and not be like choking and gagging by the end of it, but everyone was fine. But the other thing is, right after they finish screaming, Amy hears something in her headphones that her microphone has picked up. She hears Simon screaming and crying right as he's about to die. But they're in a cement building. Like, cement. Everything is cement. There is no way that her microphone picked up his little whimpers from how far away he was, and he was outside the building.
Well, yeah, we watched, not only do we watch him walk down those stairs, but he does something and he walks far away, and then the killer jumps down behind him.
He's
so
in
like
a courtyard.
He's constantly walking on this mission while he's having a cigarette, very far away from the room that he was just in, where all the screaming people are. Yet was picked up on her.
Who was that? I heard it. Who was that? So not only is she Batman, now she can hear things.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, is this a superhero movie?
Oh my god.
Does she just see and hear sense everything?
Is this Once Upon a Time? Oh my god.
Like, she had superpowers. And wasn't very good at using them, but she had them.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, kudos to Amy. I wish I had superpowers.
I know, that's awesome. Next time I see a light flicker in someone's house, I'm running there.
So there's this part where Amy just finished watching the VHS tape. She flicks on a light and she sees her own reflection and gets scared.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, every morning. Just kidding.
Mirrors don't count. It has to be a reflection that you're not expecting.
I wouldn't say a reflection. I mean, I think the obvious, like, the weird house coat hanging up, or when we used to work at escape rooms where you turned on light switches and things came from the back of mirrors. But I don't think I've ever, like, caught myself in my own reflection in a window and been like, oh my god.
I have.
Oh. And I pissed myself.
Well, okay, so growing up, I had to walk through my little sister's room to get to my room, and my door was a part of her room. And she had a china cabinet in her room. And one morning, I wake up and I go to leave my room, and I open my door and I see my reflection, which I should not be expecting my reflection, but I see myself. Instantly terrified. A little scream came out. She left the cabinet door open, and the glass was enough to reflect off of me, and like so terrified. So I get it. It's a real thing, and watch out for your own reflections. Again, jumping kind of around, but she now knows that Sandra and Simon have been murdered. There's no way around it. There's no question of what could be happening. She knows they are dead. And yet, she goes to film in the Tunnel of Terror.
Yeah.
Like, let's just grab everyone again, and we'll go grab our crew, and we'll go film the next scene. Like,
Not only that, but we'll make it super terrifying before we go in there.
And I understand, like, she's really passionate about her movie project, and she really wants to do this, but everyone keeps dying, and it's just a regular day. It's now just Thursday, you know?
Yeah, she just doesn't understand that maybe it's her movie that's doing it.
No. So they're there, it's nighttime, they're just about to set up, and she sends them to go for lunch.
I didn't understand that.
It's like, hey guys, everyone, let's lay down those tracks, get that camera rolling, and go for lunch.
I know.
I'm like, no one did anything yet.
I'm sorry, I get that it's a work day, but it was like 11 o'clock at night, and she's like, go for lunch.
Well, and again, I've worked on sets that were nighttime shoots as well, and we do get lunches, obviously. But you don't get lunch the minute you get there. You have to go do your job first, and then there's time for lunch during it. So it was just, again, they needed the crew to leave for the movie and to kill some more characters off, but the lunch excuse made no sense.
And that's why, like, you are talking about how terrified you are because every time you're alone, someone is chasing you. So the first thing you do is you send away the 8 people that you're with in the terrifying tunnel. Like, what are you doing?
I also felt, because they killed Dirk and Stan in that scene, that their deaths were not urban legend related yet again, and they both got electrocuted. I felt that was pretty lame. Yeah, at least kill them differently. So there's a database in the school, and you can look up anyone who's been a part of any project on a computer. Type in their names, and it tells you every project they've worked on. So the kind of spearhead towards the end of this movie is Trevor realizes if he removes Amy from the cast list and keeps everyone who's been pretty much murdered so far, that they were all working on Travis's movie beforehand. So maybe that's the connection. So they go and they find Travis's last movie and they watch it. And it's a piece of crap. It's a horrible movie. Then they find out that the credits and the movie itself have been spliced together, and come to the conclusion that this is not Travis's movie, but it is his credits. So where is his movie? Now here's my question. How did they watch an entire movie and not know that it wasn't his? Because the actors should have been the same people then. Yeah. Like, so you're telling me he made 2 movies, or someone made 2 movies and they had the exact same crew and the same cast? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
You're also telling me that the, like, most sought after students' work wouldn't be recognized the second you sit down and go, this is not his work. Maybe we should take a look at the reel and see if there's any splicing in it. The scene where we show the splice looks pretty damn obvious that it's been spliced. So I don't know if we had to watch a 2-hour movie to figure it out.
There wasn't much care put into that splice, that's for sure. Yeah, and the fact that, again, that if this was such an amazing movie, Sandra was in it? The person they shit on over and over about being a horrible actress, she was the main actress in this amazing movie.
Yeah.
So there's so many problems. There was so many problems. So we have to talk about the ending and the craziness of what was going on. There was a lot of characters, a lot of the actors and people that we didn't really know much about were all of a sudden at this end of this movie.
Yeah.
We had Amy, we had the professor, we had Trevor, we had Graham, and we had Toby. So we had 5 people that we, outside of Amy, the other 4 we barely spent any time with.
Relatively none.
Yeah, and so this whole who could be the killer thing is still going strong, but okay, Toby's tied up because Amy and Trevor think he's the killer.
Yeah.
And they have him tied up, so we know he's not the killer.
Yeah.
Then we have Graham, who is, again, not a big part of this movie at all, and is just mean to Amy throughout it, hiding behind a wall looking at things going on. It's like, okay, well, he's not the killer. Why would he be hiding like that if he was? Mm-hmm. And then we have the professor who was called there by Amy to talk to them and prove her case that they solved the mystery of who the killer was, as if, like, I don't know, so they've captured Toby, tied him up, and instead of, like, calling the police or anyone that could actually do something, Reese, they call the professor to be like, he took a movie and he killed all of our friends. Yeah. Like, what logic? Like, that would never, like, that's not real. I mean, yes, this is a movie, but this is a dumb moment, a really dumb moment. And then the professor shoots Toby and he falls through a set. And then it's like, oh my god, the professor. And then he, as we said before, he explains why he's doing this. Yep. He wants the fame and he wants to blame Amy because of her father. And they barely touched upon her father outside a couple of minutes in the beginning. And it just felt like it was a kind of a waste. It was not a big enough reason for all this to happen. So then Reese comes into the scenario. Again, this is a moment where Reese needs to step up, take everything that she's learned from what she survived in the first movie, and shoot someone. Mm-hmm. Like, trust the girl going, like, this guy killed everybody. Instead, she doesn't. And her gun gets mixed up with a bunch of prop guns, and Amy grabs the real gun, and she shoots the professor. Yeah. We then flash forward to an award that's being given to Trevor based off Travis's movie. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that whole scenario is just another movie. Yep. Amy just makes movies based off things that are happening. Yep. And we get to a scene where her movie kind of morphs into a television in a psych ward. Mm-hmm. And it's revealed that the professor is now, I guess, handicapped or injured.
I would say.
And he's a patient in the psych ward. And his nurse is the killer from the first movie, played by Rebecca Gayheart. Mm-hmm. And I love that ending. I don't know how you feel, but that connection of bringing her back right there, I loved. And I personally, as much as I have feelings now about this movie, looking back on it, when this first came out and I saw that she came back and did that little cameo, I was like, please make a third one and somehow bring them both in and make it make sense. Yeah. Make a third movie and make it make sense with both these killers working together. It never happened. Rightfully so, after rewatching this and seeing the flaws in it. But how did you think about the ending?
I actually really liked that part of the ending. But I know that you mentioned, if I can remember correctly, it's been a long time since we've done a podcast. So I remember correctly, you really love Rebecca Gayheart, that's her name? Yeah. You really like her. And I remember you talking about that the first time. So for me, it was just kind of like a moment, but I never had that moment of like, we need to see more with both of them. I was just like, oh, that's cool. They connected, the two killers are together, and she got to watch a movie about how her college experience turned into another movie about another college experience that turned into a movie.
So again, it's kind of, it's that inception of it's all kind of blending in with each other. Mm-hmm. And because technically, again, they were watching a movie of what happened, what parts of it are true.
Exactly.
We still don't know.
And that's I really liked how the last movie ended with that, with
the urban
Rebecca,
legend being an urban legend.
Yeah. I did really like that. But like you say, it is kind of similar in the sense, but now it's just a movie inside of a movie inside of a movie inside of a movie inside of a movie. So
it kind of, as much as there's problems, I felt the true ending there was a nice little, did we really watch what we thought we watched, you know? Mm-hmm. Did what happened really happen, or was it just a movie?
Yep.
And we'll never know. Mm-hmm. until they make a third one, bring both of them back. So like every podcast, we have our ratings. And
the ratings are back.
The ratings are back. They are back and stronger than ever.
I don't know. You never liked when I rated movies, so
because you were always biased and unfair. But that is a discussion to have later on.
Okay.
Well, you just gave in? That's a first.
I'm growing.
So our first rating for this one is edge of seat rating. Did it keep you engaged? Did it keep you pulling through the movie?
I gave it a 2. I think that it was, obviously on the medium of the spectrum. My reason being is that I feel like these, I'm going to use the word cheesier, but I don't know if I mean that, but like a cheesier horror movie, there isn't, especially in this one, there was a lot of killing, whether it be for the movie that they were creating or a real life thing. I was invested to see who the killer was going to be. I was invested to see who was all going to die. But it's not like it was a 3 where I was like, what's going to happen next? Because I knew that people were going to die next. Within the next 3.5 minutes, we're going to see another person die. It wasn't anything crazy special as far as edge of seat.
That's fair. I gave it a 1.5. I gave it a low score because I agree with everything you just said. And I also think that with the problems of kind of not knowing who the killer is because we didn't interact with them for most of the movie. Mm-hmm. And then the scenes like where they watched the film and they were all sitting there, so none of them could be the killer. At that point, like I have 1 or 2 options. I'm not really invested because it doesn't really matter because it could be one of those 2.
Yeah.
So it's not as fun. So that's for me kind of where the edge of seat rating deserves a lower score. Mm-hmm. Next is the acting, and I'd love to know what you gave the acting.
I gave it a 2. I don't think that everybody in this movie was a great actor, but I don't think that everybody in this movie was a bad actor. I'm really in between. There was about half the cast where I was like, you suck. And there was about half the cast where I said, okay, that did good. Once again, am I a little biased because I really love Jennifer Morrison? Yes. Do I think that she's actually a great actress in this movie? I think there's some parts that were meh, but for the most part, she pulled off a pretty good scared lady trying to find a killer, I guess. Based on the script she got, she did what she could do. But then there's, of course, I hate those, and this is just my hate for whatever these cheesy horror movies. I love Urban Legend 1. but you know me and like cheesy horror movies, and I just think that like the Sandra character is just... She's a bad character, or she's a bad actor in the movie, and she's a bad actor in the movie, in my opinion.
So does that make her a good actor, then?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it balances out. So I gave it a 2.
That's fair. I gave it a 1.
You really hate this movie.
Well, we'll get to the final review at the end here. But yeah, I gave it a 1. Because the entire time I was watching this, I really thought I was watching a porno. Like, the acting quality was very on that side. And with how everyone looked and acted, I'm like, this could easily just been a porno. Mm-hmm. Just take out the killing parts and make it a porno. Like,
yeah, there was some pussy eaten in there, so I mean, it could have been a porno.
It could have been, and yeah, so it's a 1 for me. Next is the script. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be, the storyline for the most part, kind of the dialogue. Was it realistic? How did you feel?
I gave it a 1.5. I mean, I think everything we talked about kind of gives the reason why I gave it a 1.5. It was kind of all over the place. We didn't know who the killer... We didn't even have a chance to, know who the killer was going to be. The weird scenarios where they're just in places for no reason and they see flashing lights and decide to run. A lot of it just didn't make any sense in that sense. So I gave it 1.5.
I gave it a 1.
Okay.
Yeah, again, this kind of goes with the porno acting. It was very stilted. It was very by the books. I don't think any of the character interactions with each other were very engaging. It was very much, this is what happened. Oh, okay. Scene. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's no conversation. There's no nothing. It's just move on to the next filming day. And just not engaging enough by any means. Mm-hmm. Climax. So that's going to be climax to me, obviously, I think is when we find out who the killer is and they're on the set. And yeah, what was your score for the climax?
Give it a 2. After our conversation, I'd probably change that to a 1.5, which I know doesn't make a huge difference. But I put it mid just because you do have that wonder about Travis, and obviously he got murdered. I think we knew that from the very beginning, that he got murdered. That's nothing new. But then I was like, well, we didn't really know who the killer was. They really did keep it a good secret. But once again, after our talk, that wasn't a good thing.
It was a hindrance for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd probably change it now, but I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 1. Yeah. As I said previously, I just think that the ending is a disservice to the movie. You find out, again, the killer is someone that we didn't interact with for the majority of the movie. Mm-hmm. And Reese was not useful, and that should have been a time for her to shine. I do love the ending with Rebecca Gayheart coming back, but that's not enough to really give it a higher score. Yeah. And last, would you watch this movie again?
I gave it a 2. For the reason being, if I were to watch Urban Legend 1 with somebody, I'd probably end up watching Urban Legend 2 with that somebody. You know, like if with my boyfriend, if I watched Urban Legend, I'd probably be like, okay, we can watch Urban Legend 2. Not as good, but we'll watch it. Would I go out of my way to watch it like I would Urban Legend, which I gave a 3? No, probably not. But with someone else, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way in that sense, but I gave it a 1.
It's your last time?
It's probably my last time watching that movie. There's not many other scenarios where I can see myself going back to it now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the same feelings as when I first saw it. And again, I knew it wasn't as good as the first one when I first was watching it. Mm-hmm. But now that I've watched it all these years later, and I've had that experience where I watched the first one with you, and then I brought forward the second one to kind of put a little bit more closure to the series, so to speak.
Yeah.
I have no urge to really ever watch it again, because I was really disappointed, even more so now, with the flaws in this movie. And I gave it so much credit before because I was like, you know what, it's okay, it's a bad horror movie and it knows that. But I disagree with that statement now. I think it took itself way too seriously, and I think if it wanted to be a bad movie, it should have been a bad movie.
Yeah.
And the acting was just not, it just wasn't good. And not saying the first one had good acting, but they knew it was a bad movie, and they made fun of that. The Dawson's Creek references and stuff, like, they made fun of who they were, and this one took itself way too seriously, and for that, yeah, it's a 1. I'm not going to watch this again, I don't think. So with that, my high score is 5.5.
Good job, Urban Legends Final Cut.
The final cut.
Mine was a 9.5 out of 15.
Hey, like, that's pretty surprising. I thought this was going to be like a bare bottoms, like, they're not going to get any marks. And...
Yeah, I think, and like I say, I think for my first time watching it, having that mid rating for most of it at the 2, it obviously, you know, that adds up, but it's still a mid rating.
That brings the score to 15, which is pretty low for our movies.
That is, like, that's half of our full rating.
It got a
15 out of 30.
It got a 50%.
Yeah.
It got a 50%.
Which
I
is,
guess,
especially with how my rating system, that's low. Usually even fucking the worst 500 Days of Summer bullshit gets like a 20 out of 30.
What?
I don't think we gave it a 20 out of 30.
I don't think we gave it a 20 out of 30 either, but you are biased towards your movies, I feel. So maybe that's why 500 Days of Summer got a higher score. So... But we'll see, because we have another movie that we're going to be doing.
Yes.
Right after this one.
Very excited.
Check out episode 2 of season 2.
To see To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Oh, God.
Another high school drama for you, baby.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Revival. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and enjoy our encore presentation of Season 1, Episode 2, Urban Legend, now available on most platforms.